Hello, everyone. Welcome to Obvio Q&A. Got some waves. Hello, a few extra faces now. We might have got a few extra people that came through in Leap and TVE. I'm guessing that was the case for some. Um, that's why you're here on time. Uh, we'll get some of the older, more mature Obvio users that'll come a little bit later, I'm sure. So hello, my name's Grant. I worked 4 years ago. Blue and I created Obvio together, and so that's how I've got involved in it. So just from laying the land, understanding how it all works, Obvio is used, which I'm sure you probably learnt at TVE, but um, that Obvio is used by people directly, that people that are users that are have subscribed to use Obvio, and then a large number of people that are in the Leap program have access to Obvio. So these calls are specifically about Obvio, um, not at all about the Leap program, but specifically about the platform Obvio and how we use it to execute our online events. So every week we do these calls. We take questions that are based on wherever you're at. And so sometimes we get really advanced, complex questions about connecting multiple services and getting that all talking to Obvio and getting into the nitty gritty of things. And then there are very basic questions about I'm just stuck on trying to set up my first event or whatever it is. The calls don't build on each other, and so they're unique. Every week is just the set of questions as to wherever people are at. We generally allocate 2 hours to these calls, and we'll see how we go. By the sound of my voice, I'm not in America. I'm in South Australia, um, and so sometimes on a morning like this, it's 6:30 a.m. at the moment here, and sometimes there are times that I need to take my children to school, which means that 2 hour window doesn't quite work. But we'll see how we go, and we'll see if Blue makes an appearance at some point as well, which is often the case, depending on our schedules. Either Blue or I are generally here to be able to answer the questions. So it's great to see you all. Um, we have a button on the dashboard which says "Ask a question." Now, what that button is, and we can go into that at another time perhaps, but what that button does is just brings up a form in Obvio, and that goes to a what we call a form moderation, where we can see all those questions and we can sort them, and that helps us on these calls particularly that we separate out questions, specific question topics about Obvio, uh, and the chat. And so the Zoom chat, very welcome to use that for general discussion, perhaps follow up questions to the topic or the question that we're talking about at the time. But for new topics, we manage that by posting that on Ask a Question on the dashboard, and that just keeps us flowing and make sure we don't lose any questions that are in the chat. So that's how that works. And of course, from time to time, we ask you to unmute and we can talk about what it is that you're wrestling with Obvio, and also sharing screens and all that sort of stuff. So that's how that works. So it's great to see all these new faces. We're excited to have new Obvio users, and we can get into some questions. Heather is here as well. Heather, you might have seen Heather. Lots of you would have seen Heather on at TVE. She works in support with us at Obvio, and she helps us out with these questions and things like that. So, hello, Heather. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? It's good to see some of your faces. Some of you guys were in our awesome room too. I'm sure room one was fine as well, but room two is where we were at.
I love I love how there's always rivalry between the rooms. There's just an instant tribe when you get allocated to a room that's like, yes, go room two. It's very cool. Did you, Heather, did you work on the first TVE?
I did, yes.
Mm, that's
That
what
was
I
when I was
thought.
still doing the event production side of Sage.
Mm, yep. And so much has changed in 4 years. Not
I know.
only not only are you working for Ovio all the time, but you're also a nurse now, which is amazing. All the things that can change, eh?
Full of surprises.
All surprises. All right, let's get to the first question, Heather. Thank you.
All right. So I don't think Maston is on this call, but he posted a question. He said that he's confused about Zoom rooms. Does he need to have a computer for each Zoom room he opens? Let's say he's running an event with VIPs and GA and buyers. We need to have different levels of access for GA, VIPs, and buyers, but within each level, separating like GA and VIP and the buyers. So if he is in need of more than one room, does he need more than one computer? He's trying to figure out all the tech backs.
Yeah, great. It's a great question and a common question when, particularly when you experience some of the larger events on Obvio, and you can see that there's multiple Zoom meetings that are happening or Zoom rooms. That it can be confusing as to, do we need to have multiple rooms, and how do we do it if we need to? So first of all, let's let's get the perspective right that Obvio is all about handling our attendees and getting the attendees into Zoom. And so generally for most people, they're able to run their event in one meeting, right? Because the limit to how many people you can have in one Zoom room is 1,000. So that you can have 1,000 people. Now, just want to make it super clear as well that uh, Ovio uses Zoom. It's included in the subscription. The licensing for Zoom is all included, and it's just Zoom meeting. It's not Zoom webinar. So Zoom just announced that they can have Zoom webinar go up to 1 million people, 1 million attendees, which is very cool. It's very cool, except it's kind of like a live stream at that point, right? When you're doing a webinar, because you can't actually see the faces of your attendees, right? You can see all of the faces of your panelists that you join. That's webinar. It's the reason that we have doubled down on meeting is because we want to be able to see the audience, right? Um, as you saw with Blue and Barry Studio, it's built around seeing the audience. It's about seeing all the faces, and ultimately that is a better experience for the attendees because when attendees see other people engaging, it encourages them to engage more. And so that's why we like to use meeting. Now, because we're using meeting, we're limited to 1,000 people. Another limitation in Zoom is in the way that in the way that they're set up with breakout rooms, is that you can only have a maximum of 100 breakout rooms in one meeting, which means if you were hitting the limit of 1,000 people and you wanted to do breakout rooms, you're limited to having 10 people in each one of those breakout rooms, and we would think that that's too much. Often, you might have a particular application where 10 is perfect, but generally, the sweet spot is around 5 or 6, something like that. And so, because of that, that brings our overall total in that meeting down to about 500 or 600 people. So they're the kind of restraints, and you need to use that in your calculation. If we have, it's rare and not advised, but we have one. I work on a particular event where they go into pairs. Pairs can be really dangerous in Zoom, right? As you'd understand, people that want to escape the extreme introverts that don't want to do a breakout room destroys groups, right? Because it's like one person disappears and now one person's just sitting in the room by themselves. So breakout rooms of pairs is is an extreme example. However, if for some reason you did want to do pairs or triplets, then that would also reduce your overall limit because of the 100 breakout rooms. That would mean 200 people or 300 people maximum in a room. So that's one room. When what happens then is that you say, okay, we want to go to multiple rooms. So it's very easy in Obvio to open another room or to set up a new room that sets up a new Zoom meeting. And for all intents and purposes, those two meetings are completely separate. There's nothing about those that are linked. And then what that means is that attendees are getting assigned to rooms randomly or automatically in a load balanced sort of fashion, right? So then 5 people enter, they go into room one, another 5 people, they go into room two, and it tries to keep those numbers the same across however many rooms you have open. So I can see a few people glazing over. Totally get it. It is that there is a little bit of complexity to how we're kind of hacking Zoom to be able to make these large events. So you can imagine on a Tony Robbins event or many of the other large events, we have 25,000 people or 30,000 people that come to the event. We can literally have hundreds of meetings that we're running. And the complexity is not on the Obvio side. The complexity is on your AV production side. So getting back to the actual question, yes, ideally you have a separate computer with separate audio and video going into that specific meeting. And so that's how you manage that. The production, the audio and video from the host has to get into each one of those rooms individually. So the nice thing to remember with Obvio is that it scales. It really scales well. And just having that understanding when you're thinking about how it will scale is really helpful. A lot of people, as I said, the idea of having 500 people, 600 people at their event is very exciting, and they don't need to worry about having multiple rooms. They'd be happy to have 20 people or 50 people coming to their event. And so it's not a limitation or anything that you need to be concerned about until you want to scale above that kind of 500-600 people sort of number is what you'd be thinking about. So getting to the question as well around separating out GA, VIPs, buyers, things like that. They don't necessarily need to be in separate Zoom meetings. Lots of you would have seen it at TVE that there was these labels at the end of people's name where you could see that people were all access or that they were leap or things like that. And so that's how you can actually group people or distinguish people within the one meeting. And we can talk about how labels works in Obvio. But Mastin, I'm not sure if he's come yet, but you can see in the recording. This is another thing as well, is that you can see in this meeting that we're live streaming. We're live streaming to YouTube. The reason for that is quick, easy access to the recordings after these meetings. And so it's actually streaming to it straight away. And so as soon as we've stopped, you can, even now, you can go back and you can review parts of this meeting. So if you can't make a Wednesday afternoon, then you can still post questions. We'll answer the questions, and you can go to the recording on YouTube. You'll find it really easily. You can scrub back through it. So that kind of answers that question. Hey, Blue,
Hey, Grant.
Congratulations on TVE.
Oh, thanks, man.
Another awesome event. I see that you're not standing today. You've chosen to.
I'm trying to rest a little bit. I'm trying to rest up.
Fair enough.
I stood for 3 days, so.
Understandably, yeah, it's a great event, and we're seeing lots of new faces here because of it, I'm sure.
Yeah. So first off, sorry I'm late. Although admittedly it's better than the amount that I showed up last week or the week before that. So first off, for those of you who just joined us in Leap, and I know there are a few of you on this call, congratulations. Thanks for coming in. What I wanted to say, though, is you weren't actually supposed to get the emails about today's call because I didn't want this to be your first Leap experience because it's not really a Leap call, and it's all good. You're welcome to stay here. You do not need to hang out with us. It's all good. But we do have our jumpstart call tomorrow. And we're going to set the stage for all of this for you, including walk you through, if you haven't already set up your Obvio account, and I know many of you have, but if you haven't done that, where to get access to Obvio. And also, while this call is an awesome call, Grant and I have been doing this pretty much since we launched. A call like this, initially we were doing 2 a week when we first launched, but we've kind of gotten into a fairly solid rhythm of doing one of these calls every single week, but they don't build on each other. So in Leap, everything is very stair step, right? Like you learn this, and then you learn this, and then you learn this, and then you learn this. With these Obvio Q&A calls, they're very much driven by you guys, right? They're driven by where are you on your journey with this platform and what question do you need answered? So sometimes we get a really advanced question and sometimes we get a super easy question, and they can both happen on the same call. And it's also not uncommon for us to answer the same question week after week from different users who weren't there the week before. So I want to say that's totally cool for everybody who's brand new, who's just getting used to the platform. We're here to answer your questions. If we had better documentation or documentation at all about the platform, I would perhaps be a little bit more offended by it, but I'm not. Grant and I love being here. We love answering calls on this platform. And for those of you who are in Leap, Obvio is included with Leap, right? You get it as a benefit of membership for the entire year. So you got the reminders for today's call because all Obvio users get invited to today's call. Something else I'd like to tell folks is some of you are going to be in a position where you don't want to set up your dashboard. You want like a VA to do it for you, or a son or daughter who perhaps is a little more tech savvy or whatever. If you have a team member that is the one that you want working inside of Obvio, just reach out to help@obv.io. Let us know their email address and say, hey, listen, I want to include this person on my Q&A, on the Q&A calls, because these calls aren't limited. They're not limited to owners. They're of Obvio, of the platform. They're not, or account owners. They're not limited to Leap members. Anybody who's using the platform, we want to make sure you and your team have a great experience, so they are welcome to join us. I'll also tell you that there is a workshop that was recorded around a year or so ago. And the workshop recordings are available to you, but they're also available, they're openly available. And Heather, thank you, just put the link to those recordings in the chat. There's a lot, it's 16 hours of recordings, okay? So I'm not expecting you to watch all of them. But what I will tell you is half of every single call is Q&A, which you can probably skip, right? You can just kind of get to the walkthrough component, and the platform, we went through almost every single piece of the platform that existed at that time. There are some changes, but it's a great starting point. Now, with that being said, don't feel like you have to watch the recordings before you ask a question, okay? Because one thing you'll never hear me say or Grant say, oh, that's a great question. The answer to that are in the workshop recordings. Go watch that. We'll always answer the question, okay? So just know that that's where we're at. So I just wanted to say that really quickly. And for those of you who are new Leap members, hang out. You can listen to the entire call. These calls usually are about 2 hours in length. Sometimes they end a bit early. Every once in a while, they go a little bit long. Usually the times that they go long are just after TVE, when we have a small influx of new users and new Leap members who are still trying to figure out what the F is Obvio and how do we use this thing. And that's awesome. Grant and I love this platform. We both use it every single day for our own events, but also for our client events. I was telling somebody today we had a Grant Cardone event being run on the platform. We had a Tony Robbins event being run on the platform. It was actually a Sage Robbins event, or as I like to think of it, a Barry Baumgartner event. And then we also had a fairly large event run by a gentleman by the name of Eric Worre, who's in the MLM space, and had, well over 10,000 people in attendance. Like today, all told, at one point, we had almost 30,000 people on the platform. So we use this platform every single day for all sorts of different types of events, and we kind of love it. So I'm happy to be here, happy to answer questions, and happy to support you guys. There is an ask a question button on the dashboard that you clicked on to come into this meeting. That's generally how we prefer to take questions. You can put them in the chat like Lisa just did. And if Grant and I see it, we'll oftentimes reference the question, especially if it's a follow-up to a question we're answering in the moment. So I'll just answer Lisa's question, and then I'll hand it back to Grant and Heather. I'll hang out for the call. If there's anything I can do or any answers I can give, I'm happy to. But like Muddy said, Lisa, you don't need a Zoom account for your event, but you may need a Zoom account for your business, right? And I'll actually tell you, I have a Zoom account for my own business, right? For Sage, for our normal calls, when I do a client call or a team call or something like that, because you don't actually get a login to Zoom with Obvio. You get access to Zoom. You get the ability to launch a Zoom meeting from the event. It's a little different, right, than having your own full-blown account where you can make full customizations to, the waiting room text and all sorts of other stuff like that. It's not a full-blown Zoom account, although it has many features that your full-blown Zoom account won't have. Right? So including being set up by default, using all the features and tool sets that Grant and I feel is necessary and kind of best practices for live events, right? And that comes from, I said the number this week, but over 4,000 events have been run on this platform. So we have a solid understanding of what's needed in Zoom. That's not to say that we're 100% right 100% of the time, just most of the time. All right, that's it for me. I'm going to pass it back to you guys.
Well done.
And hang tight.
Well done. And sorry for some of you that were here right at the start of the meeting where you heard most of that from me as well.
Yeah, what? I did ask Heather, and Heather was like, yeah, he did a solid explanation. And yet I still said some stuff that I knew was going to be a repeat because I showed up late. Sorry about that.
And look, it happens a lot where we like to answer the same question, but we want an Australian version, and then we want like a Canadian American version.
Yeah, an
so
Australian version and
then
another version that you can actually understand, as another way to say that. So, yeah.
There you go. All right. So we've got one question answered in the 25 minutes, but it's great to have it's great to have everyone here. And for the seasoned Obvio users that have joined this meeting, you see that we've got some extra new faces, and so we're slowing things down just a little bit to be able to explain it along the way. So, but it's great to see all the old faces too. There you go. All right. Next question, Heather.
So this is from Amanda. She said that she has HubSpot for her CRM and she's trying to set up the connection. For the login URL property, select the contact property in HubSpot to save your attendees' login URLs. Should I create a new property in HubSpot or choose one of the drop downs on the list? And can you give me a flow of how to accept money for the event? Like they sign up on a HubSpot form and pay through Stripe.
Okay, lots of questions in there. Let me answer the first one first, which is you probably how you handle your HubSpot account varies from client to client or from user to user. And I am not a primary HubSpot user. I understand the platform and I know the terminology, so I'm going to say a couple things that should make sense to you. You probably don't want to use an existing contact property for the login URL. You probably want to create a login, a contact property for the event login URL. Now, keep in mind for every event you host, that login URL is different for each event. So you want to make sure that what I would consider best practices is like event name or acronym for the event, and then Obvio login URL as the contact property name. So you know what it's for. Because if you have 5 events over the course of the next year, you're going to wind up with event 1, event 2, event 3, event 4, event 5, Obvio login URL. Whereas if you just name the field Obvio login URL, you won't know which event it's for. And that could become confusing pretty quickly. So that's number one. Number two, the second part of that is how I don't think you did ask this part, but how do we sync things up? And we sync things up between the two platforms using lists, so contact lists. It can be an active list or a static list. It doesn't matter. Meaning you can add people to the list through a workflow, or you can add people through the list through filters, essentially, which is an active list. But you just select the list that you want your Obvio event to be connected to and make sure that you add your contacts from HubSpot into that list as they register for the event. Now, backing up to the last question that you asked in there, which was how do I take money? And this is the part that I am a little bit blind on where it comes to HubSpot because I'm not familiar with HubSpot's e-commerce solutions, or honestly, even if they have them, or if you're or what you're doing specifically, right? Like you may be selling your event ticket on a ClickFunnels page, collecting money via Stripe, and then zapping the information into HubSpot to say, "Hey, this is a new contact, and they're an attendee." I don't know what your process is on that front, and I don't think there's a wrong answer. But however you would normally sell a digital something is how you would sell an Obvio ticket or a ticket to your event. Alternatively, you can get access to the Obvio Marketplace system, which essentially is a sales page builder that allows you to build a landing page for your event and connect your landing page to Stripe, and that will that will bypass the need to have another third-party system to create your sales pages on. The marketplace system is something we have to turn on for you manually. It's still in what we call closed beta, although pretty much all Leap members have access to it. New Leap members, it hasn't been enabled for. Actually, no, that's not true. I think it has actually been enabled for all Leap members. I got to double check that. But Marketplace could be a solution for you, and is a pretty nice solution. Although we're still working on it, there are still some things that we are making better. So there you go. Hopefully that answers those questions.
Yeah, for some of you that are like, what even is HubSpot? We've built integrations into Obvio to allow people that already have CRMs, customer relation management systems, to be able to integrate that into Obvio. If you don't have any of that, you can still run, you start off and run smaller events on Obvio directly. And there's a few different ways of doing that. We can explain at different times. All right, next question.
So Miriam is working in Marketplace and she wants to know how she can change the background color for her purchase page.
The background color for your purchase page, there's 2 things that you can do. And this is a tiny bit on the complicated side, but it's actually really powerful. So let me just see if I have a marketplace page here. Okay. So as a starting point, if you click on page settings up at the top and you go to styling, there's a background option here, and you can change your background, your default background color. So let's say I wanted it to be, I don't know, really pale green. Wow, that's really ugly, but let's pretend that that looks good. Now I can click save, and everything, every section or every section of Obvio or of my marketplace page that I haven't defined the background is now that teal color, right? Now, this is the key. If you've gone into a section, so this top section right here, if I click on the gear and I go to styling and I change my background color here to be red and I change my opacity to be 100%, it's going to override the page background color, right? So you can create background colors by section. You can create a page background color, which will be the default. And then you can actually go one step further just to make your life even more complicated and take your individual blocks and have those have background colors as well. So if I wanted this as an example to have a dark, actually, let's just say white background color, then I could do that. And now all of a sudden, this title block also has a background color. So background colors are something that apply in a bunch of different spaces at the page level, at the section level, and then also at the block level, which you probably were hoping for a simpler answer, but there you go.
So a rare moment on one of these calls is that Blue has made a change to something that looks terrible and he's let it go. That doesn't normally happen. He's like, I can't leave it like that.
Yeah.
OCD.
No, it's
kicks in.
okay. I'm no longer screen sharing, but I am fixing the disaster that I just
Yeah,
created on that page.
yeah, I'm sure. Right, next question.
Gigi said, I'm interested to know how to use Avio's landing page and the SMS feature.
Mhm.
Cool. Yeah. So first off, Gigi, welcome to Obvio. I think you're a new user. First thing we need to do is get those two features turned on for you. So our team will do that. And then once it's turned on, you then have you'll see some new options in the sidebar of your event. So again, if I go into and just show you the event that I'm in, you may not see marketplace or communication. You may just see attendees and Zoom areas. But if once those features are enabled for you, which just takes a moment, just email us at help@obv.io and say, hey, I would like to get access to the marketplace and the communication feature. No problem. And then inside of broadcasts, you have the ability to send SMSs. Now, there's a small fee for SMSs. SMSs cost for North American phone numbers in Canada or the US, they cost 2 cents per phone number. And I believe there's a base price of a dollar per broadcast. If you're sending a text message internationally, it's 10 cents, regardless of where it is outside of the US and Canada. Now, following up on that question, there was a question from... I'm sorry? Okay. Following up on that question, there was a question from Elvira saying 95% of her audience speaks Portuguese. Is there any way to change the language in Obvio? So the Obvio interface is English only. However, all of the every single text element on a dashboard that you build inside of Obvio, you can change the text of. And because you can change the text, you can make it Portuguese. In fact, we have several clients who use Obvio as a platform outside of the English language. We've had Spanish, we've had French, we have had Portuguese. I feel like we have actually had some Hindi on the platform. So we've had a lot of different languages on the platform, all of which are doable because of the fact that you can edit pretty much any text that you see attendee facing, right? The user interface of Obvio, the admin of Obvio is always going to be English, or at least for now, it's English. At some point in our future, we may add a translated interface. But for now, we're trying to get it right in English first.
Same with these calls.
Yep, exactly. Exactly.
And I did just post, Blue one time walked through how the translation feature worked in Avio. So if you look in the chat, I did post a link that shows you where you can go to find that if you are interested in doing that.
Yeah, and what Heather's referring to on that front is the platform does have the capability of actually having a dashboard that is multilingual, right? So rather than just be one language, regardless of what your primary is, if you're serving more than one audience in more than one language, there is a translation feature. It's a little clunky, I will admit that. But we have had clients who've done events in like 11 different languages, all of which are, in their own, not Google Translate. Like they actually had translators properly who actually, not AI based, who properly translated all the text and all the copy for each language. And we're able to do that with the platform.
And one of the things I think about with all of this stuff, with all the online services that inevitably you have a bunch of them to just have your business running, is just knowing what's possible, I think, is half the battle. And so knowing that translation could happen, you just store that away in your brain. You know that it can work. You don't have to know exactly how to do it right now, but you know that it's possible. And it's the same with all that we do with Obvio, is just having a general understanding of how things work and what the flow is of an attendee or what the flow is of a team member. Knowing that general understanding helps a lot, because then it's like, okay, I know you can add a team member. And so I'll get to that at some point, and then you learn, okay, now I'm ready to get a team member in and things like that. So if you ever feel like, whoa, this is just overwhelming, just take the basic understanding. Oh, HubSpot can connect with Obvio. Okay, I'll note that. I don't need to know all the details of that. I just know that that's what's possible. And so that's what I find is helpful with these calls. You hear intimate detail about how to make some of these things work. You don't have to remember all of that necessarily. And even for the people asking the question, you might find you want to go back to the recording and go over the bit where the explanation of it, and walk through it at the same time. So there you go. All right. I think we're down to just one last question there at the moment. Heather?
Yeah, so Muddy wanted to suggest if you wanted to do just a quick tutorial of start to finish, create an event within an organization for the newbies.
Is that
And a refresher
plan?
for us who have been on here forever and might have forgotten things.
Is that your plan for tomorrow, Blue, or what are you thinking? Like how to
Sorry, I
unmute?
muted myself. No, we weren't going to do that tomorrow.
Okay.
I mean, I'm happy to. I know Grant can do it as well.
I've got one. It's interesting. We do this every now and again, and it's a bit of a competition between Blue and I as to how concise we can make it. I mean,
Grant's winning.
Blue
We'll
did a
we'll be
15
fair.
hour a 15-hour version. I've done a 40-minute version of stepping through the whole thing. But there's always little changes that happen, and so it depends whether immediately post TDE whether Blue's up for the challenge to step through a basic understanding of Obvio.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to. If there are no other questions, I'm happy to give it a go.
All right. 40 minutes is the challenge. What do you
40
think,
minutes is the
Muddy?
challenge.
I
40
challenge you to 25.
Yeah, no.
Fair.
Well, one of the questions that I see asked, and I get asked, and I'm just a super fan and power user. I'm not on the staff, but the question I hear is, what's the minimum that I need to do to put on an event? Right. So not labels, not translation, not a bunch of forms, really just a simple dashboard and a Zoom room. Right. That might be an interesting walkthrough that I don't know that we've done.
Sure. All right. So is there a stopwatch? Do I get some sort of challenge like that? All right. So we're going to go ahead and share our screen. If somebody wants to mark down 5:40 p.m.,
I'm putting my timer on now. Don't worry.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And here's the real test, guys. It's not just about building a dashboard quickly. It's about building a dashboard in a way that you understand what I'm actually doing. That's the piece that actually takes a little bit of extra time for us over here. Okay, folks? So I'm going to start by saying when you first log into Obvio, as a Leap member, you're going to probably have a little something that says, hey, you have to add a credit card to the platform. And when you do that, know that we're not charging your credit card anything. Your account is complimentary. However, there are certain things inside the platform that you do need to pay for if you get big enough to require them. One is if your events are over 500 people, there can be fees associated with that. The second is if you need more than 5 active Zoom rooms at one time, then there can be fees for that. And then the last thing that there's charge for is to send SMS messages. Everything else does not require a credit card, but those 3 things have the potential to. So when your account is set up, there is that request. Now, when you first do that, once you do that, you're going to see a page that looks like this, and it's going to say organizations. And unlike mine, that has a whole bunch of organizations, you're probably just going to see one, right? And it's going to look something like this one here, like Andrea Yenawine's organization. So it'll be your first name, your last name, and the word organization. So I'm going to go ahead and type in Blue. I'm going to create a new organization for testing purposes, and just show you what it looks like when you first go into an organization for the first time. So I'm clicking on that, and you're probably going to look something like this. It's going to say events. They're going to say no events have been created. Now, one of the first things you may want to do is click on the little down arrow right here and go to settings. And from settings, you can rename your organization name. So you may want to change your organization name to like SEM, Sage Event Management Inc., right? Like if you want to put it in the name of your business instead of the default, you can do that. You can also upload a logo. Now, that is really cosmetic only. You don't need to do that. There's no requirement for that. The only area that logos will show up is actually on the organization page. I would just say that it's pretty straightforward to do that. Like I have the Sage logo right here for our main organization where TVE lives and our other events live. But you see, if you don't do that, you just get the Obvio logo. Again, that's the only place that logo shows up. If you don't have one, it doesn't matter. So from this page, you're going to want to create an event. And every time you host an event, you're going to create a new event, right? The system is really designed for you to have as many events as you want over the course of your time using the platform. And you may also be wondering to yourself, Blue, why are there different organizations? What's the point of that? I'm just one company. Well, one thing to note is we built Obvio primarily for Sage initially, right? And we wanted to give people access, our clients access to Obvio, but we didn't want to have crossover, right? I didn't want the Tony Robbins team to be able to see what the Grant Cardone team was doing and vice versa. So if you are in a position where you work with multiple people, or if you have more than one business that you work with, you can create multiple organizations. The pro accounts, the Leap accounts, which are also pro, have the capability of having 3 organizations within the platform. So now that we've got our organization set up, I'm going to go ahead and click New Event. And that's going to give me a little menu or a little form that I have to fill out. First thing it's going to say is it's going to say, what is your event name? So I'm going to put my awesome event testing August 21st is what I'm going to call it. The next thing it's going to ask you is for a unique URL. And essentially, Obvio has the ability to use 4 different URLs, and the URL for your event becomes a subdomain. So you can use obv.io, which is the default. You can use bootcamp.live, eventsoft.io, or the one that I personally think is cute is zoomiverse.com. Now, obv.io tends to be the smallest and the most innocuous, so most people use that. So I'm going to just put my awesome event, and you see over here that your URL for your event would be myawesomeevent.obv.io. Now, because I know that I've already done an event called My Awesome Event, I'm just going to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 at the end, because URLs are unique across the entire platform, not just your event. Okay, so now I'm going to select a time zone. This should really be set to the time zone that you're in. We can go into deeper as to why at some point in the future, but generally speaking, put it in the time zone that you're in. Next up, your start and end time for the event. Now, the start and end time is going to dictate when you can launch Zoom inside of your event. These are not dates and times that your attendees ever see. This is just for internal purposes only, for you to know. So if my event was going to take place, let's say the 19th to the 21st of September, I would probably start it that week, right, around the 16th. And then, actually, that was the end date. My bad. The 16th, and then I would make the end date the week after, like the 23rd or so. And you may be saying to yourself, well, Blue, why would I make my event a couple days before and end a couple of days after? Well, remember what I said, that this really, all that does is it prevents you from using Zoom in its full capacity outside of that window. So what I usually do is we start the event as a best practice a couple days before, because your tech team, which may just be you, is undoubtedly going to want to test Zoom before they get going. So putting it a couple of days early is just a great way to do that. Next up is an expected number of attendees. This is a number that we use internally. Again, it's really just for information purpose. I like to set the goal. Whatever your goal is. If you're trying to get 50 people, put 50. If you're trying to put 2,000 people, put 2,000. It has no bearing on anything outside of internally. We use this number for statistics. Okay. You have the ability to create a default attendee password. I'm going to skip over that for now and just click create. Now, when I click create, it's going to take me back to my events page. And now my one event is showing up there. My awesome event testing August 2021 is showing up on the events page. Now, the first time you click into it, you're going to get a unique page. And that unique page is this one. And it says, hey, choose your event template. And you may not be sure which template you want to choose. So there's a couple of things that you can do. Number one, if you just click on the image, you're going to see some screenshots of what that particular template looks like. If you really want to see it and explore it, you can click View Sample Dashboard. That will open up a new tab, and it will allow you to see a fully functional dashboard for that particular template. And what we've tried to do with all of these sample dashboards is we have made them essentially the same branding, right? So we're putting the same content across all 6 of the different templates so that you can actually see which ones makes the most sense, or which one makes the most sense for you. Okay. Now, from there, a lot of the time we get a question, which is, which template converts the best, right? Are some of you thinking that? Like, I want to choose the template that converts the best. That's the one that I want. Yeah, they all convert equally well. We have done really successful events with every template that's listed here. So when we design a template, we design it with the call to action in mind, we design it with functionality in mind, and we design it with conversion in mind. So honestly, that answer is simply, if you pick one of the 6, you're going to be happy with conversions, assuming everything else goes well. All right. From there, you may be like, okay, well, Blue, what's the easiest one to customize? I want to keep my life simple. I want to build a dashboard in, 20 minutes. Is it possible? And I would say to you that the easiest template to build with and the fastest to customize is cards. Okay. And the cards template is easy to customize because it is largely a big graphic when you first load the page, right? This background photo of people on Zoom televisions. This is actually from the second iteration of our studio in Charlotte, North Carolina. And then in front of it, there's a logo, a little bit of custom text, and then there's this button panel. And in this demo, there's 3 buttons that are one color and 3 that are another, but you can have as many buttons as you want up here, and they can all be unique colors. And I'll show you what I mean by that in a moment. And then when you scroll down from there, it's what color do you want the sidebar to be and what blog posts are you going to put in. So the graphical elements that you need for this dashboard are really a cool background image and an event logo. That's it. Okay. So that's why I think it's the easiest one to customize. It's also the one that happens to be used by some of our biggest clients, right? This template was originally designed for the Tony Robbins events. And if you have been to a Tony Robbins event, you recognize this template because it's still used by that team. Okay. Now, you're like, okay, great. That's the one I want to do. Just click select. Hold on one second. Don't do that. Right here, you have 2 options before you pick your template. One is start with an empty template, and the other one is start with demo sample data. And I would highly recommend that you start with demo sample data because it's much easier to edit something than it is to create from scratch, right? Would you guys agree with that? So when you decide, all right, I'm going to use cards, I'm going to click start with demo sample data, and now I'm going to click select. What that does is it creates your event for you. It selects the cards template. But most importantly, when we go down here to the design area of the event and we look at the dashboard, I have all of the content that was on the sample dashboard. So you have a starting point, right? You're not like, what do I do there? How do I make the thing happen? What do I gotta blah, 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 right? So from here, let's see. I need a logo. So I want to get rid of the Obvio logo and replace it with something else. Let's say I was making a let's see, images. All right, let me go Microsoft 1995 and then say logo. Perfect. All right. So let's say I wanted a Microsoft logo from let's say I was going to be doing an event, and this is the logo that I want. So I'm going to download this Windows 95 logo. And of course, this is not how you would do it. You would be using your own logo, but because I'm just creating a dashboard out of thin air, this is where I'm starting. So next up, I'm going to go default Windows 95 background wallpaper. And why am I doing that? Because I need a background image for my dashboard, right? That was one of the things that I know I need. So I don't know, for those of us who are old enough, you may recognize this particular image. I know for those of you who are like, Windows 95, what do you mean by that? Don't worry about it. It's something that Microsoft did at some point in the distant past, and you are the beneficiary of it in some way, most likely. So I'm going to go ahead and save this image and call it Win95 background. All right. So first off, let's get this logo changed. I'm going to click on the gear up here in the top right corner. And when I do that, I'm going to get a little header pop out. And the header is where the Obvio logo is. So I'm going to start by removing it. And then I'm going to go ahead and click upload. And I'm going to grab, oh, you know what? I think I did the Windows 95 logo. I downloaded that wrong. Let's go background. There we go. Oh, come on. There we go. Save image as Win95 logo. Okay, so I'm going to click upload. I'm going to grab my Windows 95 logo. And I'm going to just click skip resizing because I want the entire logo there. And I'm going to click save. All right. So far I've changed the logo. It's not quite right? Because it's background. There's something going on with the background here. So let's start actually by going to next thing. Let's change this background image out for the background image I want for my dashboard, which is under global styles. And I'm going to start by removing the ones that came with the default or the demos. And I'm going to click on image for background 1, and I'm going to grab my Windows 95 background and click done. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click save. I'm going to go back to dashboard. And when I do, now all of a sudden my dashboard is starting to look like Windows 95, right? And you can see hopefully that really, really quickly, you can brand this dashboard with 2 elements, your logo and a cool background image. You can brand this dashboard to be yours personally very easily. Now, you may be like, okay, Blue, that logo is way too small. You're right. Let's increase the size of it a little bit. All right, that's a little bit better, right? And then I don't want it to say custom welcome message. I want to say welcome to the future of computing. And then I'm like, you know what? That white doesn't work. The black really is what we need to have happen. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, make it a little bit bigger, and click save. Now I'm going to click on preview because there's these little interface buttons, add countdown, new button, all that stuff. And because I want to get that to go away. So I want to see what it's actually going to look like. And it doesn't, collapse the sidebar or anything along those lines. It just eliminates some of the interface elements. So I'm starting to see how this is going to look, and I'm feeling pretty good about myself. Okay. Now, to Muddy's point, we're going to keep this easy. There's really just going to be 3 buttons that I want up here instead of the 6 that are up here. So I'm going to start by clicking on the gear for this help desk button and removing it. Okay, and then I'm going to click on the FAQ and I'm going to remove that. And then I'm going to click on the sponsor page. I'm going to remove that. All right, so now the next thing that I'm going to do is I've got 3 buttons left: main stage, Obvio knowledge base, and speaker page. So I'm going to change these. One is going to be, instead of it saying main stage, I'm just going to say join the event. Okay. And now I'm going to click save. So I've changed the text of my button, but I'm not happy with that color. That color doesn't work with the color scheme that we've got going on, right? So what I'm going to do, and hopefully you'll know this stuff for your own personal brand, for your own personal event, but I'm going to take the 3 colors, the red or orange, the green, and the yellow from the Windows 95 logo, and I'm going to use that as my 3 colors that I want to create these buttons as, just to kind of maintain my branding. So I'm going to start with this join the event button. I'm going to click on styling, and I'm going to paste in the hex code that I just captured. And now I'm just going to click save. So now I've got a green button that matches my green logo in the Microsoft logo. Then I'm going to go to the Obvio knowledge base, and this isn't going to go to the knowledge base. It's going to go to Microsoft website. And I'm going to change this to go to https://microsoft.com. And then I'm going to go to styling, change that blue again because that doesn't work, and change the blue to be the orange because that's the color that I want for that one. And then I'm going to do one other thing, which is I don't want this hands shaking hands, but I wonder if there is a Microsoft logo. And there is. It's the new Microsoft logo. But you can change these icons. There's an icon library that you have access to. If you wanted a happy face or an angry face or a smiley face, there's a whole bunch of icons you can choose. We're using something called the Font Awesome library. It doesn't really matter to you all that much outside of knowing that there are quite literally thousands of icons that you can choose from. And it's just a matter of finding the one that makes the most sense for you. So now I'm going to click save, and all of a sudden, Microsoft's website, now we're starting to look like Windows 95. This is awesome. All right, so next up, speaker page. I want to have this say meet our speakers. I want to change this this icon to be kind of like more of a user's icon, like this one here. Like there's multiple speakers in place. And I'm going to send it to the speakers page, which is a built-in Obvio page. I'll show you how to use that in just a second. And we're going to change the color of this icon as well. We're going to get the yellow, or that's kind of like orange. I'm not really sure what color that is anyway, but there we go, yellow. So now we've got, this is starting to look a little bit more like the brand that I was expecting it was going to look like. But there's something that I'm not happy with, which is I think that Windows 95 happened before rounded rectangles was really a thing. So what happens about that? Like, could I make this a little bit different? Well, you can go into Edit Main Nav, and there's this border radius. And I'm going to reduce the border radius down to 0 and click Save. So now, well, that's interesting. When I click, now my buttons are a little bit more square. Okay, this is feeling, again, a little bit more on brand, right? And very quickly, it's starting to look much more like my Microsoft example than anything else. You can go deeper than that on button styling. If I wanted to add a little bit of a border to it, if I wanted to say, you know what, I've got these black borders or the black text. What if I were to add a little bit of a black border around each of these buttons? How would that look? I'm not sure this looks good, but this is just so you can see how easy it is to actually do it. So we're going to go 4 pixels for, I think I did 3 pixels actually. So that's going to drive me crazy. As Grant so eloquently pointed out, I am a little bit of a perfectionist when it comes to this stuff, and I do things that I probably don't need to do. So there we go. These are my buttons. When I preview it, it shrinks a little bit. This is starting to look very much how I want it to look. There's one thing that I'm not 100% sure on though, is I think this background may be a little bit too bright. And interestingly, I believe this works. I can add a little bit of a black background color opacity. And when I do that, it puts a little bit of a darker spin on that particular background image. Okay, now I'm happy. This is starting to look exactly how I want it to look. I'm not going to worry too much about this down here. Just know that anything that you see inside of Obvio, you can hover over. If you see a gear, click on it, and it'll give you the ability to make changes to it. So if I want to, there's this blog post area that has a sample blog post. And of course, you're going to want to modify that to be your content. You just click on the gear and you say like, welcome to the event, exclamation point. And then you highlight everything in there, delete it, and say Windows 95 is going to change everything. Wait till you see it. Start me up. Okay. Now, of course, we'd probably have to put a little bit more information in our welcome post, but when I click save, you see all of a sudden it easily changes the blog post, and you can see how if you had a welcome message, you could easily put that there or anything along those lines. The sidebar elements are all essentially the same thing. If I wanted to change this sidebar to be more on brand, I would probably come in, pick a color, grab the blue that I haven't used yet, and edit my sidebar, go to styling, and change the background color to be blue. That's now we're talking something, our Microsoft color. I'm going to change my separator between sections to be none. And I'm going to, again, remove my background border. Wait, no, that's something else. My border radius and thickness of that sidebar, I want to eliminate that. So again, we're trying to get rid of the rounded rectangles. So this is now starting to look much more on brand for my event. Now, the last thing I need to do is I do need to point this to Zoom, right? This join the event button right now is going nowhere. So this is where it gets a little bit technical, but I need to go into Zoom areas and think of Zoom areas like event ballrooms. So I'm going to go ahead and click on main event rooms and create a new area. I'm going to leave the defaults exactly as they are and click create. And once I've done that, I now have one Zoom room here inside this main event rooms area. And I'm going to go back to the design of the dashboard, and I'm going to edit this button and change the area to point to main event rooms. So now when an attendee logs into this particular dashboard and clicks join the event, they're going to get forwarded into Zoom. All right, next up, I need to go into attendees, and I got to test this. I want to see how is this actually going to look for real as an attendee. So I'm going to go ahead and create an attendee for myself. And there's one other thing I'm going to do. I'm going to go into the check-in process. We can detail this at some point in the future, but I'm just going to disable everything in the check-in process, meaning when somebody logs in for the first time, they just go straight to the dashboard. There's no tech check, there's no password, there's no waiver they need to sign. I'm making my life easy for this particular event. And let's see, I go in, click on my name, and click on this little login to attendee dashboard, and that will launch this event dashboard as this participant. So when I load it, again, you're seeing all the changes that I've been working on, the welcome to the event. The sidebar is looking pretty decent. Probably could use a little changes, and we probably want to change the date of the agenda to match what my actual agenda is. But you see how this is starting to look very much like your event or the Windows 95 event, and not an Obvio event. So that gets you really close. I guess there's another thing you probably want to do, which is you want to take a look at the login page, and you probably want to customize the logo. So just because we're, trying to be consistent and think about all the things that I would be doing if I was doing an event, we're going to add the Windows 95 logo onto the login page. And I'm probably going to make some design changes here just to keep my life easy. Well, not keep my life easy, but consistent. I'm going to remove the border radiuses. Again, keep in mind, I'm trying to get rid of all my rounded rectangles. And I'm going to make the color the blue rather than some of the other colors that I've got. Then I'm going to go to the login option, do the same thing, make the login color blue. I'm probably going to customize my hover background in this case just to have a little bit of fun with it. We're going to make the login color yellow when you hover over it. And then I'm going down to border radius, setting it to 0 because, again, no rounded rectangles for me today. So now when I hover over that button, it turns to yellow instead of blue. There's one thing though, the yellow and the white don't go, right? The blue and the white work fine. So I'm going to go back into my styling and I am going to go under typography. There's text color and there's text hover color. I'm going to change my text hover color to be black and click save. And now when I hover over login, I can actually read the login. All right. So there's my login page. I'm pretty happy with that. I'm not going to customize this text, but if you wanted to, you would just hover over it, click on the gear, change the text to be your own language rather than the sample dashboard language, and you're good to go. So that is 20 minutes. And I think we have, is it? No, half an hour, 30 minutes. Was it 5:40? What time did I start?
35
It's been
minutes?
30 minutes.
Okay.
All right. Well, there was a lot of talking. All right. A lot of, the first 10 minutes were just setting the stage for what an organization was. I feel like I did solidly well there.
You did.
And we now have a dashboard that, somebody who is excited about Windows 95 would be really excited about.
I want to go to that event.
Before we do change any subjects, we did have a question come up. So someone was asking about sizes for images and logos.
Yep.
And do you want to just explain a little bit about why we don't have them and like the best practices for that?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I saw the question in the chat as well. Thanks for that, Heather. The question was, what are the dimensions that I need to use? What image sizes should I use? Obvio is a platform that is responsive, meaning as screen sizes change, right? If I were to share with you my full screen size, I'm on a ultra wide monitor, right? So it's really, really, really super wide. When I look at a website on my screen, it looks very different than how it's going to look when you look on your screen. So we rarely give you specific dimensions for like a logo or specific dimensions for different pieces and parts because it doesn't matter, right? It's going to look different on different people's websites or on different people's screens. With that, I would say that the background image on cards should probably be 1920 by 1080, right? Or 16 by 9 high resolution. So that's probably the only recommendation that I would make. I guess the other recommendation that I would probably make is if you have two options for a logo, right? When we're thinking about this Windows 95 dashboard that we were playing with, you'll notice that the dashboard is conducive to a wide. It's much better with a wide logo than a tall logo, right? So if you have the option to do a more like a wider logo, I think most of the dashboards do better with wider logos. But with that being said, I've got clients who give us square logos all the time and they work perfectly fine. But if you have the option for your event, I would say go wide with your logo.
Thanks for that.
Nice.
Cool.
And then we did have another question come through.
Good.
Jana says that she works in the Mastermind platform. She built a sales page and registration form. Is there a way to integrate it with Obvio so the registrants can get their login for the Obvio dashboard?
It depends. And it depends on whether or not you're using the new version of Mastermind's platform, which is part of their MBS system, or if you're using the old version of mastermind.com, which was released prior to, I want to say, May, June of this year. So it really depends on which version you're using. If you're using the newer version, then yes, there is integration. I don't know that you know this, but it's not really a secret. The new version of Mastermind's tools are built on top of High Level, and Obvio has native integration with High Level, and we've confirmed that it does work with Mastermind's implementation of it that you get inside of the MBS program. Yeah, so version 2, I'm pretty sure, Jana, is the high level version, like you said. And if you use the high level integration, when you go to log in, you just use your Mastermind login and it should work. Cool.
And right now,
Cool.
that was the only other question that we had that came through the dashboard.
Awesome. For those of you who are in Leap and joined, the most recent tech lab that we did was a full day implementation day on how to use Marketplace and how to build sales pages. So there's a great resource there for those of you who are new Obvio users as a result of being Leap members. And once you get access to the Members Hub, which I think you have already, if you go to implementation days or mastery days and you look at the most recent tech lab, which was about a month or so ago, it's a full day. And again, there are portions of it, because there's implementation, there's portions of it that you can probably watch on double speed. If I'm answering some questions for individuals as they're going through stuff. But it's a solid foundational knowledge of how the sales page system works. You're welcome, Karen. Yeah, and Elvira, I appreciate you saying that it looks easy to do. I will plainly admit, Grant and I know this platform a lot easier than most, right? So I can do that with my eyes closed with zero prep, just downloading a couple of assets and making it look half decent. It'll take you a little bit longer, of course, than it took me. I can do it probably in a third of the time that I did. I've been on calls with clients where they're talking and I get bored and I build their dashboard for them. And then at the end of it, say, here, this is what we've designed for you. And it sounds like we put a lot of time into it, but oftentimes we'll do it while I'm on a client call. So it really is a powerful tool. It's fairly simple to use. Please don't ever hesitate to come on these calls and say, hey, Blue, hey, Grant, I've built a dashboard. I'd like your opinion. Can I show it to you? The answer is always yes. And we'll always, provide you with feedback. And, in some cases, if you'd like us to actually make changes to it, both Grant and myself, oftentimes we'll just.
That's the first time you've called me my Grant. That's beautiful.
My Grant, both my Grant. and the grant that's not mine, we'll do it for you, in the moment. So yeah, we're happy to support.
Yes, and you'll find that we both know it really well. I lean towards a developer mind, and so I think about the technical side and connecting things all together. And then Blue leans towards, as you saw, more of that design side and how it looks and lining that all up. And so,
I
but
like
we
to make it
overlap.
look pretty.
We overlap well.
Yeah.
So
I like to make things look pretty. He likes to make sure they work. So there you
it
go.
works, yeah.
I see Jackie has her hands raised, and I will just say, generally speaking, of course, we're happy to take your questions, but we usually prefer that you post them through the Ask a Question button. But go to it. We don't have any questions in the Ask a Question button, so as a result, let's go ahead and get you unmuted. There you
I
go.
apologize.
You
I was
don't
about to
apologize.
ask.
You're good. You're good.
Okay. I came from another Avio environment, somebody else's stuff, Pedro Deos. So
Mhm.
I'm in there a lot. Is that why I had is it a good thing to have them just reset their Avio when they're coming into a new environment? I'm not trying to be cheeky or anything
No,
like
no,
that. I'm just
I'm trying to understand the question.
okay.
Well, can I just say that the Obvio is set up to allow one user to have access to multiple organizations, right? So when you log in with your one email address, you could see multiple organizations. And so where
if
you
you've been invited to them, yes.
correct, yeah, as a team member, yeah. If you've been, so you would have your own owner-based organizations, and then you would have any other organizations that people have invited you to have access to. And so we don't recommend that people have different email addresses, for
No,
different accounts.
that's not the
So,
question.
Yeah.
okay.
I had a really hard time getting in, and it wasn't until I found your email with the I
The
think it's
login URL. Yep.
update your Avio that I
Mhm.
was able to finally get in. So
To this call,
this is the question
or to
to this call. So this
Okay.
is the
okay,
question.
okay. There we
Should
go.
I have reset, or is it a good idea? Because I have other people that are possibly coming from another environment like Pedro's, right?
Yeah, the two, I understand the question now. Thank you. You don't have to, there's no need to reset. There's no need to clear your cache. If you've attended other events on the platform and now you're attending a new event on the platform, there shouldn't be any overlap in any way, shape, or form. Just because you have
Easy.
access to one event does not give you access to any other event. And the cache mechanism between events, whether Pedro's event or the update event or a Tony Robbins event or a Grant Cardone event or a Bloomberry TVE event, it doesn't matter. They're all even though they're on the same platform, the attendees are not in any way connected. In fact, you'll have an attendee record for each of those events that's completely unique and not in any way connected to any of the other event attendee records that you have for other attendees. What you may have experienced today is a mess up in our communication system that should have given you the dashboard link for the update.obv.io URL. Now, the other thing that I'll tell you is the update portion of that URL is just the event name. It's not actually updating anything, just so we're on the same page there as well, right? When I was creating the demo dashboard that I just did for you, I called it My Awesome Event 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's the same thing that we use for the dashboard that you're using right now to get into this call is just called update. It's not actually updating anything. It's more we called it that because we were thinking, all right, when we give updates about Obvio, we should do it on the update dashboard. So that was it.
Okay.
Silly boys trying to be clever.
Yes.
You're welcome. Go ahead, Patricia.
My question is this. I've subscribed to Avio only. What are the 3 most important things that I should do tomorrow for an event scheduled October 24, 25, 26?
Create an event and start playing with it. I mean, that is the best practice you're going to get is to create an event and just start customizing it. Upload your own logo, change the color of a button, try and upload downloadable resources, try and create an attendee and then log in as that attendee. Just play with it. That is going to be better than most of us when it comes to using a platform like this. You can watch videos, you can read, resources, and you can do all sorts of things like that around that are education based. But most of us, when it comes to learning a platform, the best way to learn it is just to play with it. And you're not going to break anything, right? You can create an event, and if you don't like it, you can just delete the event. Don't worry about it, right? Or you can create 2 events and create a 3rd event and just get it to the point where you're like, I like it, and now I'm starting to understand it. So that's what I would do tomorrow, and that's what I would do over the course of the coming week. You can, if you are a learner who likes to see and watch other people do rather than do yourself. There is the workshop recordings that Obvio attendees get access to. There's a link to that on this dashboard and also further up in the chat that Heather shared. And then the last thing that I would recommend is come back next week and ask your questions. You're welcome.
And there was
So
something that, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Grant.
I was just going to say, especially in the testing phase when you're messing around, there is nothing that you can do that is going to start charging you like without your permission, right? So you won't accidentally have charges that are happening because you pressed the wrong button. Everything is very explicit as far as any add-ons or things like that, and so you can just keep playing. But I would totally suggest going back over the video that Blue just walked through and do it at the same time. Somehow have your computer set up or something where you can see Blue's video and then step through and do exactly the same steps as Blue, and you'll totally learn a bulk of how the system works.
Here is my promise. If there
Alright.
is something technical, I guarantee you I will screw it up.
Nice. Well, it's good. It's good to have a challenge, Patricia. It's good to have a challenge.
So the thing is too, Patricia, that and this goes for everyone, is that there are some things that only you can do. And then there are some things that you can have other people do. And often I know a barrier to that is money, right? It's finance and trying to pay someone else to do it. But you might find that there's someone that you can lean on, family or friends, that could do a bunch of this stuff for you and not have you have the stress of having to work it all out. Having a good understanding of it yourself and what is possible is important as you lead the business. But do you need to do all of that work yourself? Not necessarily. And so I encourage everyone to think, what is it that only I can do? And it's probably delivering content, building community, getting all those relationship stuff, all the really key things. Do you need to be an Obvio expert in order to make your business run well? No, you don't. And so if you're already acknowledging that this is not a strength area of yours, then start thinking creatively about who you could lean on that could watch Blue's video and be like, oh yeah, I get that, because they've had experience with online services. And so it's worth thinking about those sorts of things.
I do have someone that I can get to help me, and I'll put that person in on my account.
Yep.
Yeah.
You can absolutely do that. And those people can also join these Q&A calls, because these calls are not limited to owners. They're for users as well. And users include your team members who are trying to figure it out.
And the YouTube channel is public as well. This video recorded today is public. And so you can actually send these links to people as well. So I'm going to skip out, Blue, and take my kids to school.
Sounds like a plan.
It was great to see all these new faces. Excited to get to know you more over the coming weeks and help you in your Obvio journey. So awesome. Thanks, everyone.
All right, guys. Well, if there are no more questions, I'm actually going to say, why don't we call it for the day? And know that we do these calls every single week at 5 p.m. Eastern time. We will send you email reminders letting you know that the call is taking place. And in between events, right? If you're like, tomorrow you're in the middle of something and you can't figure it out, inside of the Obvio platform, there is a little chat icon. And between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern time, there's generally somebody who is communicating or is available to chat with. The other thing that I'll say is there is a Facebook group that is also a great place to put Obvio-based questions after hours. And by after hours, I mean, outside of the hours of 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and on weekends. Myself and Grant keep an eye on that. So do a couple members of the team. But there are also other members of the community that keep an eye on that. And I'm trying to remember what the There it is. Thank you, Heather. There's a link to the Facebook group. It is different than the LEAP Facebook group. It is different than the TVE Facebook group. Yes, we have to manage 3 of them. But we try to keep all of our Obvio-based questions on the Obvio page, on the Obvio group. So join that if you're on Facebook. It's a great way to get access to some of the help that you may need during your event, leading up to your event, and after hours. All right. Well, guys, thanks so much. Congratulations. It's going to be a fun year for those of you in LEAP. For those of you who are just using Obvio, I don't mean just using Obvio. Congratulations on choosing what I think is the best event platform out there. Now I just have to figure out a way to tell more people about it. All right, I'll thank you. Have a great day. Talk to you soon.